Welcome to Wildly Wealthy Life, the show that's all about exploring the different paths to a life of freedom and fulfillment and how that ripples through your personal life, family life, and to the community. Join husband and wife power couple Lee and Kat Hughes as they share people's stories from different backgrounds and lifestyles about what it means to live a life well lived. Tune in and take that first step to becoming the best version of yourself, personally and professionally, here on Wildly Wealthy Life.
Now, when I think about wealth, I think about freedom, and I think about having the time freedom and financial freedom. So when I say financial freedom, I mean having passive income streams that can equal to or replace your working income, so that you work because you want to, not because you have to. I consider wealth having the time to be with the people you love. I consider wealth having people you love. I consider wealth being healthy, and it's like a wealthy life is one that's healthy, that's full of love, and where you can live as you wish and share your gifts, and you feel like you are, you're not leaving gifts ungiven, but you're living like why you were born to live, like you're living your purpose and making a difference. So that for me is being wealthy.
All right, and welcome again to Wildly Wealthy Life podcast. I'm Lee, and here beside me, blushing right now, is
I am not blushing.
My amazing co-host and wife, Kat. Kat, who do we have the honor of having on our show today?
Today we have Monick Halm. She is the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses, and her mission is to help 1 million women reach financial independence through real estate investing. She is an author. She has over 14 years of real estate investing, from multifamily to mobile home parks to syndication deal to ground-up development. And her, along with her husband, they own over 1,000 units across 5 states. However, my favorite thing about Monick is that she is my very, very first real estate mentor. And I love that she has really upped my game with real estate investing. She's introduced me to so many powerhouse women in real estate investing. She has an amazing network. She's just, the women that surrounds her are just so awesome. And I'm so happy to be a part of her mentorship program. I just love it. So Monick, hi.
Hi. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Monick, can you tell us, I know I gave our guests a little bit about you, but we want to hear it from you. What do you do? What are you doing now? How did you get there? You can make it as short or as long as you want.
Okay. All right. It's like, how do I, so you said the brief thing. So right now, the main thing I do is I invest in real estate. We bring groups and the main part of real estate is syndication. So we bring groups of investors together to purchase larger projects. So kind of crowd fund real estate is basically what we do. On that side, and on the other side, the work I do is really focused on helping fulfill that mission, which is to help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate investing. So to that end, I have an education programs. I have a podcast too, where I feature women investors, and we do events. Usually, right now, coronavirus challenge, so we have to just postpone our events right now, but generally we also do events and just try to create foster that learning and inspiration and support for women, and then the people they love, to build and create passive income streams through real estate investing. So that's what I do, and I can talk about why I do that and how I got into it if you want, but that's the basics.
Let's get to that. We want our guests to find out as far as, what sparked you to go into real estate investing, and, what were you doing before? What was the kind of turnaround thing for you that made you want to pursue real estate investing?
Yeah. So I grew up, I'm a first generation American. My parents are from Haiti, and they're awesome. And they always told me it could be anything I wanted. And then sort of in parentheses was, as long as I was a doctor, lawyer, professor, engineer. Because it sounds like that was success. And so I wasn't as into the maths and sciences, so I went to law school because, that was the best choice of the four. And I became a lawyer. And I was, partnership track, big law firm, number one law firm in California. It was like thousand attorneys around the world. And I found myself just so unhappy. In fact, just to give you a little hint about how unhappy, at one point, remember the Tuesday morning, I found myself in the ER. And when the doctor told me that my appendix had ruptured and I'd have to be in the hospital for several days, I ended up being in the hospital for 9 days. And then he said I'd have at least 30 days at home afterwards of recovery. My first thought when he told me that was, oh, thank God I don't have to go to work for at least 30 days. And then my next thought was like, oh, that's bad. Like, I realized I was unhappy. I didn't realize quite how unhappy I was, quite how miserable I was until that moment, right? Like, if a hospital is better than, is better than being in the office, like, that's bad. But I, quote unquote, done everything right. I'd done everything right. I followed the steps, Ivy League law school, big firm, partnership track, whatever. And I should have been really happy, but I wasn't. So I had to figure out in a different way because I felt like this job was literally killing me. I don't know what caused appendicitis. I was sure it was the job and the stress. And so it wasn't a straight path. I wish I could say it was a straight path, but it was winding of like, maybe it's this law firm and another law firm will be better, or a smaller firm instead of the big firms, and then go to practice myself. So I did a lot of things to find the path. And in the meantime, I accidentally fell into real estate investing. So I went to, the only thing I'd ever been taught about real estate was to buy my own house, buy a house, right? That's all I learned. I was never taught anything about passive income streams. I was just taught to get a job, get the best job you could, but you're trading your time for money, and you'd work until 65, you get a watch, you'd like home for a few years, you retire, you die. Like that was the plan. But I said, oh, well, I do need to get a house. And in 2005, I went to do that. And I had a pretty decent salary as an attorney, but you guys live in LA too. So you know that even back in 2005, towards the top of the last bubble, like a semi-decent house in a semi-decent neighborhood was easily upwards of $600,000-$700,000. So not the mansion in Beverly Hills, just like an area where you're not gonna have drive-bys, right? Like it's not
right.
So I couldn't afford it by myself. And a friend of mine who was in a similar boat suggested that we buy a duplex together. The original idea was he would live on one side, I would live on the other, and I could afford half a house. So I was like, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And instead of finding this house like two equal sides, we ended up finding this property that had a downstairs that was bigger, and it had this 2-bedroom upstairs that was smaller. It's like a beautiful 1915 Craftsman. And then there was a back house, a converted garage also. And so we each took a bedroom in one of the units, and we rented out the upstairs, rented out the back house, rented even out our basement, and we were house hacking before I knew that was a thing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. Right? Like these people are paying our mortgage and I have tax benefits. This is so nice. I still didn't really think about it as something that I could replicate and continue to do. I just thought like, oh, that's a happy accident. And then when I met my husband, he had a duplex, and we got a single family house together. And then we ended up flipping after the market crashed. Mm-hmm. And then we found out about syndication, and we started doing that. So that's how we grew into real estate. And then especially when we started doing syndication, that's when I started learning myself and getting mentors and training. And as I did that, I realized, wow, there are a lot of ways you can do real estate. I always thought you had to, up until that point, I thought like up to a fourplex in LA was like a really big deal. And that was the biggest thing I could imagine. And I only could imagine investing where I lived until I met a mentor who taught me, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. Oh, you can do that. So then that's when I started going to other states.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, I can get 20 houses in certain markets for the cost of one house in LA. Like, that's crazy. So literally. And so that's what broadened us up. And actually now we're in six states. We're about to get into a seventh. And we have over, I think my bio is a little out of date, but we have a little over 1,300 units, rental doors now. So
within, say, the last 5 years? No, 15 years or so?
Yeah, I started syndicating in 2016.
So that's
and in that first year, like, through learning syndication and bringing groups of investors together and learning how to leverage, we went from 2 rental doors to over 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you say, Monique, that because how you were saying the biggest that you could think of before was, hey, buying a fourplex in LA. You were like, oh, that's the biggest that my mind could even comprehend. And then you got exposed to some people that thought bigger, right? You got exposed to people who actually had a bigger picture of what investing looked like. Would you say that basically kind of surrounding yourself with people who have bigger visions is something that probably really inspired you and allowed you to also see that, wait, there's so much more that's possible?
Absolutely. That was part of my thinking. So my mentor, Robert Helms, is the host of the Real Estate Guys Radio podcast. And I was connected to him through a mutual friend. And he's the one that taught me. It's actually one 10-minute conversation. So I was telling him I was looking for a fourplex in LA at the time because it was getting harder and harder to flip. And he was, then I was like, God, I can't buy anything that cash flows. It's really expensive. And he said, that's when he said, LA is a tough market. I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And I went, oh. And then he started, I was like, okay, good. Mind blown. And then he started telling me about syndication. He said, well, you can buy that fourplex by yourself, but you're limited to your own capital and credit. He said, alternatively, you can bring a group of investors together and you can get 100 or 200 units. And they started talking to me about that. And it was at that point where, I was like, I thought you needed Donald Trump's bank account to do that stuff. I didn't realize real people could do that. And then, so that blew my mind. And I also decided I need to be around people that think that big. I want to be around people who think 200 units is normal. Because at that point, most of the people in my life thought 4 units was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I just want, I want to be where people are thinking that big.
What do you think? Because I know quite a few of our listeners are going to be like, wow, 4 unit, I just want a house. How, with that graduating scale, what are some things that you did personally to help get yourself out of that one circle into the next circle and the next circle and the next circle?
The funny thing is, it's a mental jump. It's not. So a lot of people think that real estate is like playing the game of Monopoly. With Monopoly, you have to first you get the you own all the colors. You get the Monopoly, then you can buy one little greenhouse and another little greenhouse, and then you have enough little greenhouses you can get the hotels, right? And they think that's how it works in real life, but it doesn't. You don't have to start with little greenhouse after little greenhouse. And one of the things I've found is it's in a lot of ways it's easier to buy the hotel. It's easier to go big. Well, it's not harder in any case. It's just it requires different thinking and skill sets and know-how, but in certain ways it's a lot easier. There's different financing. There are different ways that you can play that game. It's actually, I have more ability to get a $20 million loan than I do to get than to just like refinance my own house, because I'm not a W-2. I'm self-employed. My taxes are such that I can take a lot of tax deductions, and my income on paper does not look high. My net worth is high. I have the income, but on paper it doesn't look that high. So it's harder for me to get access to like personal credit, but in terms of business credit, I can, like it's almost sky's the limit, knowing what I know. So it's easy in a lot of ways. It's easier for me to do a really big deal than a smaller one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Can you expand a little bit on that, just for our listeners who don't really understand the whole, because if you're a buyer who's just buying personally for yourself, obviously the banks are looking at your credit, right? For the smaller single family homes up to 2 to 4 or whatever, it's the banks are looking at your bank account and what you make every year. Yeah. Compare that and expand a little bit on how that differs to when you buy a $20 million property and what the banks look at to qualify you.
Right. So 1 to 4 units is considered residential. 5 or more units, or basically anything else, goes into the commercial side. And those are completely different animals. So literally it's like 4 units versus a 5 unit. They're very, very different. So when you're buying 1 to 4 units, the bank is looking at the value of the house as compared to similar homes that have been sold. So if you're buying, let's say, a 4-plex, they'll look at, okay, this 4-plex 2 blocks away sold for this much, and then this 4-plex a block away sold for that much, and this one, and then they look and they're like, that's the value of that house. They're not looking at the fact that one of those 4-plex is empty, has no income. Another 4-plex is getting $3,000. Each unit gets $3,000 a month in rent. They don't factor that in. They're just looking at, what like the sold prices, and then they're looking at. They'll factor in a little bit of the income in terms of like your debt to income ratio, but really they're looking at you as the borrower. They'll only do it to an individual. You can't do it as an entity. So they're looking at the individuals, and they're looking at your credit, and they're looking at your debt to income ratio, and they're assessing based off of that. Now, when you look at the commercial side, it's very different. So now they're looking at you. They're looking as if you are buying a business, which really you are. It's an apartment rental business, or it's a property business, but it's a business. So they're factoring in now the net operating income of the property. So they're looking at how much income is the property making. They want to see that the property makes enough income so that it can pay, the property by itself can pay the debt. They don't really talk about it as a mortgage. It's debt service when you're talking about commercial. So there's a debt service coverage ratio. So there has to be enough income to the debt. When it comes to the borrowers, you can be an entity, and there is a certain amount of they're going to look at who's buying the property, and they look at your experience. So they basically want the whoever's running the property to be able to take care of it, and they're in essence becoming partners in your business, right? They're putting in a lot of money in your business, so they look at what's the experience of the people buying this property. So if you've never done any real estate, in that sense, it's hard. You can't just go out and probably buy a 150 unit property. A bank's not going to want to give you that money. However, you could partner with other people who have that experience, and now, and it's because they're looking at you as a collective. So when we did our first 128 units in Albuquerque, we'd never done that type of property before, but we partnered with somebody who had that type of experience. So we were able to, as a team, right? We had that experience, even though we, like, personally, me and my husband hadn't. We'd done other things, but just like single families and duplexes. So we'd never done something of that magnitude, but our partners had. We also had a very experienced property manager, so they consider that. They're also, in terms of, you need to have generally about 20% of the loan amount in cash and like a certain amount of the loan amount in net worth. But again, it doesn't have to be yours, and it can be collective. So you can just partner with the people that have what you're missing, and that's what we did that first time. We got a partner that had experience, and then we also had we got partners that had the net worth and liquidity that we needed. And we were able to do the deal, but it was based off of like bringing together this team that had what we needed, and we wouldn't have been able to do that in a residential context.
And with the ongoing, like, so from that first unit, what are the steps that you took to like branch and do that second, third, and maybe what are some of the things you look for in your syndication deals? Like some people look at cap rate, some people look at just overall, ROI, or what types of things are you looking for?
Okay, so when we started in syndication, so our first step was education. Syndication is something that is regulated, and it's something that falls under the Securities and Exchange Commission. There are exceptions that most people use, so they don't have to register with the SEC, but it is when you are taking other people's money and you're and they're entrusting you with it, the government wants to make sure that you are doing things right and you're not violating any laws. So it's really important that you get an education, and if you don't do it well, you could win yourself some free housing, free like free orange jumpsuits and all that stuff. I don't think you want houses that way. Yeah. So it's not so much financial freedom. It's not freedom you're gonna get in that sense. But you want to really be careful, because you could be breaking some laws unwittingly, and you could find yourself in jail or with serious fines to pay. So it's really important that you understand what you're doing and how to do it. And because these are big, they can be very big, complicated deals. They do often require a fairly substantial upfront investment for the legal work, for just putting everything together, in the tens of thousands, and the down payment for the property and all of that. So or earnest money deposit. So you want to have that education. You do want to be able to put together the right team to help you to finalize that. So that's what we did. I mean, we started with education and mentorship, and then we started to look for the properties. We found certain people brought properties to us, and then other ones we found. And then once we found a property that made sense, then we started looking for the team, and we raised the money and closed on our first deals, and we're able to run through that cycle. We've since sold them and continue to buy and sell, but that was the process. And then you asked me another question.
Yeah, what are some of the
what do I look for?
KPIs, or what are things that you look for in the properties currently?
Okay, so I will tell you that one of the things that we do now mostly is we fundraise, and we partner with people that will bring us opportunities, and that makes sense. So we're not necessarily hunting down for the properties, but I'll tell you the things that we look for in terms of, because we say no probably 90% of what's come to us. So, and I'll say like what makes it to say yes. So we look first at the team. So first is about the partners and who's running the deal, because that really matters. And our partners, so we have certain people that we work with, they have years and years and years and years and often decades of experience in that asset class. They know the market, they have the team, the whole team is really, really strong. So the stronger the team, the better off you are, because conditions change and things happen, and all of a sudden the world could be shutting down, and it's like, how do you deal with that? Anyway, so things happen. So you really want the smartest, best team possible. So that first is team. The next thing we then look at is the market. And because a strong market can weather many storms, and a weaker market is just it's harder to like push something up. We mostly do value add multifamily. We have some other asset class that we look at. In particular now we've been branching out and diversifying, but we'll look at how does the market make sense for that asset, and then we look at the property, and with regards to the when we usually there's often a value add plan, like how does that property work with the business plan, and but it's in that order. So team, then market, then property.
Cool. Team, market, property. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you do it that way, because it's almost sometimes when you think about the property first, sometimes you could almost get too emotional about the purchase, especially for investors who, I'm sure even like seasoned investors can sometimes get emotional about a property where they really, really like a property. But if you just start with people and say, well, if we don't have the right people, we're not going to buy this property, even though it may make sense, but the people are not there. The right people are not there to run it. So I love that you start with people first. So thanks.
Yeah, people first. And there's another way in which we're people first. We look for deals that match what our investors are looking for. We don't look for investors to match our deals, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I talk to everyone that's on my investor list, and I really get a sense of what they're looking for, what they need, because people look for very different things. Not everyone cares about cash flow. Honestly, some people it's really more about the tax benefits. Other people it's about leaving a legacy, or they're helping set themselves up for retirement like 30, 40 years down the line. They don't necessarily care that they're getting cash flow right now. So when you're looking at different opportunities, and when we look at different opportunities, we are thinking about what will match meet the needs of our investors. And then so that's the other thing that we consider.
Yeah, I love that. I want to now kind of go into just this idea of wealth, right? So I'm not sure. I want to explore where you were when you were still like back then, when you were like, oh, I'm going to pursue law, because again, that's like, you're like, well, I don't like math, so I'm going to go pursue law because that's one of the things that were in the parentheses that your parents gave you. And also, what was your idea of wealth at that time? And then now that you are into real estate and you're seeing that, there's so many different things such as tax benefits, and then, the cash flow and passive income. How did your idea of wealth evolve, and how do you think about wealth now?
Yeah. I think when I was younger, wealth for me was having stuff. That makes sense, right? It was like, oh, you get, it's a nice car and a fancy house, and it's like about stuff. It was also about being able to travel, which I've always loved to travel. But it was more, I was looking at the trappings of wealth, more so than how I think about it now. So now, when I think about wealth, I think about freedom, and I think about having the time freedom and financial freedom. So when I say financial freedom, I mean having passive income streams that can equal to or replace your working income, so that you work because you want to, not because you have to. I consider wealth having the time to be with the people you love. I consider wealth having people you love. I consider wealth being healthy, and it's like a wealthy life is one that's healthy, that's full of love, and where you can live as you wish and share your gifts, and you feel like you are, you're not leaving gifts ungiven, but you're living like why you were born to live, like you're living your purpose and making a difference. So that for me is being wealthy.
That's awesome.
I love that. Yeah.
With your family now, what are some examples of the freedoms that you found? Like, because you have 3 kids, correct?
Yeah, I do. 2 of them are big, so they're kind of doing their own thing, like 24 and then 11-year-old. So one of the things we were doing this year until recently was we were traveling. We were traveling around the world, and we'd set up our business to be location independent, and so we were, for me, like that had been a dream, and we were realizing that this year. And then the coronavirus hit, and now I don't know.
You're back in LA.
So I don't know if we're going anywhere for a while, but what can you do? But I also have the freedom to be home with them and to to be able to just be here and not freak out because we can't move. So for me, like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
With I guess with that thought too, like everybody's kind of like on lockdown at the moment with the coronavirus and everything.
Yeah, it's such an odd and unusual time. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the different business ideas and like as you do the podcast, you write, obviously, mom and a wife. How do you kind of balance all of the noise, so to speak, and be able to still stay focused and present in your life with all that going around?
Yeah. I have a morning and evening rituals that really help me to focus in on what's most important and center down and stay on task. I also don't watch TV for the most part, so that's a lot of hours that a lot of other people don't use in a different way that I use for reading and learning and growing and working on my business. So that I think that makes a huge difference. But it's the real thing is starting my day consciously, and I do the one thing by Gary Keller. So I ask myself every day, like, what's the one thing I can do? And in so doing will make everything else easier and necessary. And it really, like, focusing on that one thing really pushes down the most dominoes, and I can be much more effective. So a lot of people are very, and I was like this too. I was very busy. I was doing a lot of stuff, but it wasn't necessarily stuff that was moving me forward so much. So I was like paddling and staying in place, like I was on this hamster wheel. And so when I really started to ask that question every day, then it helps me to take the action that is the most effective.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do less, but I have more, but I have better results this way.
Nice. Can you just give us just an example, so our listeners could have like even like an idea for some of them that may not understand really truly like what that one thing is, that kind of moves the needle the most. Can you give us an example of when you woke up, one day and you're like, okay, I know what my one thing is today because that's going to do a ripple effect and actually do the most massive thing that I need to get done for today?
Yeah. So I think I've been thinking a lot about this because especially this week, is one of the main drivers in my business was events. So I have event. You were at my last event. They're really like, I'm very proud of my events. It was like really powerful, and a lot of after the event, a lot of women want to join the community, and that's a great way to build my business and have the most impact. And we were going to have an event next month that we've had to cancel. So, in terms of you think of like, what's the 20% that has the 80% result? The events were for me like that 20, 80. So I've had to sit and think and go, okay, well, if that's out, like, what's one thing I can do that will have this, that will make the biggest impact, and that will move the most needles forward. And so what came to me was to do an online summit especially geared around helping people navigate this challenging financial time. So I know there are a lot of people that need that support right now because they're going, oh my God, the stock market's tanking, and I don't really get, they don't, they don't know what to do, and people are really scared, justifiably. So it's like, well, since I can't have a live event, and events have been helpful, then if I can have a virtual event that will really answer a question that most people have right now, is like, what do I do? And I bring the smartest people I know together to help answer that. I think that will be the thing that'll like push down the most dominoes in that sense. Because now maybe people aren't as focused in terms of finding, like, I want to grow my wealth, but they want to preserve their wealth, and which will lead to financial freedom down the road, right? You don't want to lose it either. So that's what I came up with now, and that was the answer. So now my thought is, okay, so what's the thing I can do today that will, help make everything else easier and necessary? So today I had calls with people that help plan summits, and that's what they do, and they're really good at it, and they've already know what to do. And if I have one person that really knows what to do, that'll make everything else easier and necessary versus me having to try to figure it all out myself. So I found somebody to help me do that today. So that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And I think you have a good point on that too, is just your ability to pivot. You've got kind of a challenge in front of you, and then, all right, well, how do I make this work? And boom, you took the time to just kind of stop and breathe. And I think when you're calm and you really make that purposeful decision to slow down, so to speak, to make a good decision. And then it's just awesome hearing that, you've got all this other stuff going, and then boom, like, oh, we could do a summit, an online summit, virtual summit. Who do I know that can help me with this? Da, 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 da. And you start, all the dominoes start lining up together, and then, boop, you just push one thing and they're all going to come down. And it's
No, it's quite like that, but there's
yeah.
there'll be less dominoes.
A lot of fun analogies here. Sorry.
But also, I just want to kind of point out a little bit, like what you said. You said, I'm going to bring the smartest people that I know, and then, and then that will help my community. I love that, because I think one of the things that us sometimes as entrepreneurs, people who love doing business, we love doing a lot of things. And sometimes we feel like we could do it all, but we can't do it all. And I think that it's really good for us to realize that, hey, I am not the smartest person in the room. Let me bring this other smart friends that I have that are going to help my community. So I love that, because it takes humility to be able to kind of also just say that, but also just the whole foresight that you have, that you really want to serve your community. So the best way to serve your community is actually not by doing everything yourself, but by actually surrounding yourself with the right people that can serve your community. So I just really love that. So I do want to get into that kind of like topic now, the topic about giving. And I know that, Monick, like I've been around you for the last like couple months now, since October. We're what now? March, since October. Yeah, so
September.
So it's just been so awesome. I mean, a little background, I actually heard Monick on Bigger Pockets, probably like, I don't know, a year ago or a year and a half ago. And then I remember when I heard you speak, Monick, I was like, I need to know this woman. I just need to talk to her. So at some point, I know that I jumped online. I scheduled a call with you. We had a call together. I remember this so vividly. It was hilarious, because you were having a manicure, mani and pedi. Well, you were talking to me. You're like, is that okay? And you were like, and I was just, the funniest thing is, as soon as we hung up, I was just like, that woman is so cool. Like, she like, and she was just so open to me about it. She's like, I'm doing my mani and pedi. Can I talk to you? Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, it's cool. So like, I really thought that was cool, because you were just, you're just doing your thing, but at the same time, talking to people who kind of want to know about what you do, and you're trying to, and at that conversation that we had, we basically gathered together to maybe, because I was trying to see if I could do a syndication or like, invest with you. And at that time, we didn't have, I believe, enough funds to be able to invest. And what I love is that you were not like hungry for like people to invest with you. You were just, this is what I do. If this is the right thing for us, let's do it. If it's not, come back to me the next time. So I remember that. And so actually, after that phone call, I was like, okay, it's almost like a pin. I'll put a pin on her for a second because I'll get back to her because now's not, obviously not the right time. So because we didn't really have much at that time to invest with you, and we still haven't invested with you. But the point is, the pin. I went back to you. I was able to go to one of your events, and then. To me, this is even more awesome. Like, I didn't get to invest with you yet, but the whole relationship of being a part of your network and being a part of your community is just so amazing. So can we talk about that a little bit, and how you give into the women into your community, and if there's anything else other than maybe that I don't know of, as far as like maybe not just real estate investing, that you do to kind of give back to the community?
Yeah.
Wow. But it's
I forgot that I was like, I don't normally have conversations when I'm doing mani-pedi. So
yeah.
I think I was like, maybe it went too long. My timing was off. Anyway, that's funny. Yeah. So well, my whole business is really based off of this mission, to help 1 million women, and it's because I truly believe that when women especially have more time, more money, they give back. And there are a lot of studies that have shown this, like just when women have any extra, like 90% of their extra tends to go to their families, to their communities, to the world. In third world countries where they do micro lending and they give it to women educate their kids, they hire their neighbors, they like transform a community within a few years. And so my goal with doing that was really to allow, because I know that if I can focus on women, I get everybody. And then people weren't really speaking to women about this. There have been more since they started, but when I first started, it was like nothing. The crickets was all, you'd go to a conference, it's like 95% men, and there's just like no women. And we weren't talking to women, and as women, we're different with how we invest and think and relate to money. So helping women is my way of changing the world. So that's my big give back. But also a certain amount of all my proceeds goes to I give to this charity in Haiti, where my family's from, that helps end child slavery, because there is child slavery there. They have these kids they call Restavec, so they come from the poor areas. They go to the city, and then the families will have them in theory so they can educate them, and they'll house them, and the kids work, but oftentimes they're not educated, they're not paid, and then just there like working for free, which is slavery. And so I give a certain percentage for that. We're also giving a certain percentage to junior achievement in their financial help, especially with their financial education, because I feel like people aren't educated enough about money and how to build finances and how to get out of that rat race. So that's how I give back. And then when I can, I give my time.
Yeah.
But traveling, that's been busier.
And just for our listeners, do you have the name of that charity that you give to in Haiti? Just if our listeners want to check into that.
Restavec Freedom, so Restavek.
Okay.
Restavec Freedom.
Nice. Thank you, Monique. All right. Wow, I love that. So I would say basically that you're really you're empowering women, and that's kind of just the legacy that you're really building, is to give back to the women. And I agree. And nothing against men. I love my husband, but yes, I agree. Women. Oh my gosh. It's just because we're nurturers. Yeah. We've had a lot of male guests in our podcast.
Well, bring our men with us. That's the thing. We're not going to leave the men behind.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a partnership. It's definitely a partnership.
Yeah. And I have the so my husband he's like my partner in real estate investing and a real estate investor goddesses. So he's sort of holding back, the back acts out of the 40s, my chief operations officer, and he's make sure that everything runs like it should. So we're all like both in it together. Yeah, so I don't want people to think it's like because I don't like men. I love men. I realized nobody was talking to women, and I wanted to change that.
Yeah, I think that you really saw a need. You saw a need that in the real estate investing world, there's predominantly men. And again, nothing wrong with that. But you just saw a need that there's women that probably want to learn about this industry. And you stepped up. You stepped up and created a space and an environment for women to be able to have a voice in this industry. So thank you for doing that, because literally what you're doing is, you know, it's a platform for everybody else to be able to step on and also hopefully build from that. So it's just amazing. Yeah. So we want to ask you, Monick, what are, for our guests to kind of really pursue a wildly wealthy life, what are 3 actionable tips that you would like to advise to our guests? To our guests.
Okay. Well, the first tip I would give is find out what that means to you. Right? Get real clarity, because you know, for some people it might be having the private jet and the closet of Louis Vuittons or whatever, and then other people it's like having a quiet cabin where, you know, like off the grid and doing whatever it is. So get really clear on like what does it look like, and put a price tag to it. Like how much would it cost for you to live that lifestyle? And for some people it's pretty inexpensive. Others not so much, but just like be really clear on what it is, and actually like write it out. Like if my cabin in the woods would cost this, or my private jet would cost that much, and then like work backwards. The other thing I would say is to surround yourself with people that are living that life. The people that you surround yourself will make the biggest difference in your being able to do it. And the more you can be around people that are living where you want to be, the more likely you are to get there. So that's the second thing. And the third thing that I would say is enjoy the journey from here to there. Find a way to make that journey enjoyable, because if the journey isn't enjoyable, the destination won't be either. So a lot of people are so focused on when they get there, then, you know, when I get there, then I'll be happy. And then they're like miserable along the way, thinking that, okay, I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to suffer. And then when I finally have that, whatever that is, then I'll be happy. But it doesn't work that way. You know, you're gonna get there and you're gonna get whatever that is, and then you're going to realize, oh, it doesn't actually make me that happy. But now, oh, okay, well, this doesn't make me that happy. But then when I get there, then you're always chasing, and there's really never any there. But you can be happy now. You can find the pleasure in the gratitude and the joy in this journey now, and life is the journey anyway. So to live a wildly wealthy life, which is ultimately, people want wealth because they want happiness. They want wealth because they think it'll make them happy, but you can choose and grab happiness now. Yeah. So even now in this time, like crazy coronavirus time, when we're stuck in our house, socially distancing ourselves, we can play board games, and we can play music and sing songs, and cook healthy foods, and go for hikes, and just be together. And there's joy to be found in all of it, in the whole journey. And like ultimately, like that is life. Life is the journey. So make sure the journey is a beautiful place too. Keeping your eye on where you want to be and moving towards it, but enjoying the path.
Yeah.
Love that.
I love really that. Good. Yeah.
Clarity, community, and really just enjoying the ride. Yeah. You know, being present in it.
I think really what stuck to me is be happy now. And that is so,
Mm-hmm.
it is so true, because a lot of people really do think that when they get there, they will be happy. But if they don't know how to be happy now, I also kind of parallel that even with giving, if you don't know how to give now when you don't have much, I think that it will be harder for you to give later when you actually have a lot. Yeah.
We always have something to give.
Yeah, exactly.
Something to give. And even if that is like a smile and a compliment,
Right. Yeah.
or a hug, or
Yeah.
or just attention.
Right.
It's always something we can give, and giving is one of the best ways to be happy. Actually, it is one of the biggest ways of finding joy. So, like, buying something will give you a very, very momentary blip of happiness, and giving something is definitely will give you a lot more happiness and will last a lot longer. And then giving something towards this like bigger, especially if it's towards a bigger goal, and when you have like a bigger why, that's like even more.
Yeah.
So
That's
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Monique. That's amazing. We are now into our quick 10 rapid fire questions. These are 10 questions that we ask all our guests. We want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't censor yourself. We'll keep it quick and concise. And some of them are related to our podcast theme, and some of them are just random fun things that we want to know about our guests. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number one, if you could choose one book to live by, what would it be?
One book to live by. Oh, Lord Scuffle, The Game of Life and How to Play It.
The Game of Life and How to Play It.
Your personal hero, living, deceased, someone maybe you know or don't know.
So many. Jesus.
All right. That's awesome.
That was my answer too.
Number three, the one thing you intentionally have to do every single day.
The one thing I intentionally have to do every single day, for me, is meditate.
Meditate.
Cool.
Okay.
One hobby that brings you the most joy.
Traveling.
Nice. Number five, most rewarding thing you've done for someone in need.
Most rewarding thing I've done for, well, not that they were in need. They were in need of this. When I worked for an international adoption agency for a while, like between college and law school, and connecting families together. That was the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
That's beautiful.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. First movie quote that comes to your mind.
Oh my gosh. Vote for Pedro.
Yes. All right. Okay. Number seven, last big purchase you made for yourself.
The last big purchase I made for myself. Oh. What did I bought plane tickets, but then I had to cancel them. The last one, the big thing I bought for myself was a platinum partnership with Tony Robbins.
Ooh,
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Food you cannot live without.
Food I cannot live without. I love avocado. I'm gonna say avocados.
Avocados.
Nice.
Woo. All right, number 9. What is your spirit animal?
Tiger.
Yeah.
Finish the sentence, and this is the last one. If I'm stuck on an island by myself, ...
If I'm stuck on an island by myself, still have fun.
You find a way to be happy at that very moment.
I have a lot of fun by myself.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Monique, for just being with us today. We really enjoyed our time with you. If you could tell us, where can our guests, our listeners, find out more about you? And if there's anything that you would encourage our guests to give into or serve into, what would that be?
Sure. So you can find me at www.reigoddesses.com. Also find me on Instagram at REIGoddesses, Twitter at REIGoddesses, and if you look up on Facebook, Real Estate Investor Goddesses. And what do I encourage the listeners to give into? Yeah. Give into that which you are most passionate about, and like, or whether it's the thing that like most excites you or the thing that most makes you angry, like wherever that passion is,
Yeah.
like work to change it, or improve it. Like just like follow like what's important to me, not necessarily important to you, but follow your own path and make the difference you want to see in the world.
I love that. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, thank you. That's awesome.
This has been really fun. Thank you.
For me too. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I already knew that Monick was going to be just on fire. I know her personally. I love her. I just love what she does. The one thing that really stood out to me throughout the conversation is how she really recognized that it is important to surround yourself with big thinkers, right? When she was starting, she was thinking small, right? And I think a lot of us, when we're starting, the only thing that we could see are these small opportunities. But when we actually get to expand our network and see what other people are doing and start really kind of seeing things from their perspective, we realize that we can do things big. And it's just such an amazing thing to remind ourselves to, surround ourselves with like-minded and big thinker people.
And I really loved her partnering and the growing of her community. She has the Real Estate Goddess Network, and you are a perfect example of somebody who joined her network and was able to grow. Kat has made a bunch of friends just from that one interaction, and actually we closed on a deal because of all the connections that you made from her network. So it's really awesome. She's creating a ginormous, amazing community, and we're really thankful for her to be on the show.
Yeah, so guys, if you love this show, please share it with at least one person that you know will be impacted by this message and really needs to hear this message. Make sure you like, you share, and subscribe in iTunes. It really helps us out greatly. And next week, we have Liz Thames. Wow, 2 women back to back. I am so excited. You got to check her out. She achieved financial independence at the age of 32. She's an author. She's been featured on Forbes and New York Times, just to name a few. So make sure you tune in.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope that this episode has helped you take another step towards living fully, giving freely, and building a legacy that deeply impacts your community. We'd love to hear what you think about today's show. Please leave us a review or like us on iTunes and YouTube, and click the subscribe button so you won't miss a show. You can also visit us at wildlywealthylife.com for today's show notes. See you on our next episode. Thank you, and may you live a wildly wealthy life.